Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Yeshiva League Pass Faceoff, sponsored by the Weiselberg Law Firm. For 16 years, you've entrusted Elliot with the growth and guidance of your kids, and now it's time to let him do the same for your family's most important asset, your home. Admitted in both New York and New Jersey, Elliot can guide you through any residential or commercial purchase, sale, refinance, or lease with championship quality and award-winning care. If you're looking for your commercial coach or a new home is your goal, reach out to Weiselberg Law Real Estate Services today at 917-952-2597 or wiselawesc@gmail.com. Weiselberg Law Firm. Choose wisely. And today we have the great pleasure of having Rav Yosef Hirschel, DRS alumni, former captain and champion of the first two Yeshiva League championships that were brought back to DRS High School. Rav Yosef Hirschel, thank you so much for being here and for making this happen. We really appreciate it. Welcome.
It's a pleasure being here.
All right, so quickly to dive into it, let's get right to it. The first ever championships you won at DRS as JV in 10th grade, varsity in 12th grade. You mentioned first graduating class ever, so you were the captain all 4 years. Do you believe that the role might have been greater or that the spotlight might have been bigger because of the fact that you didn't really have the opportunity to learn from someone that came right before you? Or was it just, you dived right into it, you got into it, there was no real, pressure because there were no expectations set before you?
Great question. I've actually never thought of that. And I would say that in many ways, there was no pressure. There was no expectations. There was no such thing as a DRS hockey program. There was no such thing as, DRS having this aura and being a captain or being a player on the team means something. At the same time, I do believe that my teammates and myself together, we really brought something special to DRS. And once we realized what we were doing, being that first ever team, and, JV was very different. Maybe at some point we'll get to that. JV was very different and a very different accomplishment than varsity, but definitely in that varsity championship was something that we felt, nobody knew DRS. There were 14 seniors in my class. Nobody had ever really heard of it. And if they had heard of it, it was maybe Hafter because we were just nearby, or Rambam because they were nearby, but nobody else really even heard of us. Nobody knew of us. Nobody expected us to do anything. And for us, there was like a pressure. No, we're going to make DRS. We're going to give DRS a name, and we're going to give this hockey program a name. So on one hand, there was no pressure in the sense that there was no expectations. And if we didn't, we're playing with house money, I guess you could say. But there was a little bit of a pressure because we didn't want to be that Nebi school. We didn't want to be that school that just couldn't do anything. And we wanted DRS to be a powerhouse of a school.
So do you believe, let's draw back on that. You said that you feel like, even though there might not have been pressure coming before you, there was no one before you, but, pressure to build DRS. Can you describe what you believe that compares to? Because, and on top of that, throw it in, you once you did create DRS, having won that first championship in JV, and you said it's obviously a lot different than varsity, the one you won in varsity. I would believe that's because, it was the first ever in history. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But more than that, do you believe that on top of the pressure that was building, that more than just building DRS itself, that there was pressure to repeat with the same team 2 years later?
Well, actually, it was a little bit of a different pressure. It never felt like it was a repeat. I'll tell you why. My freshman year in DRS, actually, it was the first ever year. I'll give you a little history lesson. It was the first ever year of JV hockey in the Yeshiva League. DRS was a big push. It was very hard to open up a school. It's very hard to open up a new school, and especially DRS. There are already enough schools around in the 5 towns area, and DRS made a very big push to people behind it to start a JV league. There was always a JV basketball league. There was never. We were the first year, our freshman year, playing against only sophomores. Now you think about it, a sophomore who's really good, played already the year before, maybe as a freshman on varsity. He made the team as a freshman on varsity. He wasn't going to play JV the next year. So in fact, a lot of the better talent our year didn't even play JV. The better talent my freshman year and my sophomore year, they basically said to themselves, why on earth, if I played varsity as a freshman, would I go play JV as a sophomore? Or even the guys who are a year older than us, the same thing. And what ended up happening is that people actually, after we won the JV championship, I still remember, I don't know if he's even still part of the league, phenomenal coach, phenomenal coach for Flatbush when I was there. I think he switched over to afterward, David Kolb. I don't know if he's still part of the league at all. Okay, he is. Yeah, so I still remember
he's still around, but he's kind of like involved outside. He had sons who went through the program, but yes, he was certainly
right. So did he have a son named Gordy or something? I think.
Yeah,
I recall. Right. So actually, his parents lived right next door to my parents, and what happened was I still remember he was friends with my older brother, and he came over. He was speaking to me. This is before my senior year. This resonates. Yeah, I'm a Rebbe in a yeshiva now already, and I'm out of Yeshiva League 20 years, but this conversation still resonates in my head. Him telling me, maybe you guys will just slip into the playoffs. Maybe either you or Westchester will slip into the playoffs. This is before my senior year. Nobody had expected us. There was no pressure because JV, in many ways, it was exciting for us and we wanted to win it, and it was special when we won it, but it didn't really feel like it was the accomplishment that maybe it may feel like nowadays, because the guys that were my age may not have wanted to play. The sophomores, the better ones, definitely did not play JV. They played varsity. And so our senior year, people were not expecting us to win. Again, we had 14 seniors. I mean, that's a very small class. And some guys in our class that some guys on the team had never picked up a hockey stick before their freshman year. So in that sense, there was no pressure to repeat, but there was definitely a pressure to prove ourselves and to prove that what we did in JV wasn't a fluke, wasn't a nothing. And in fact, we were just as good as everybody else, even though some of those players may not have played.
So I'm gonna kind of flip the script a little bit toward a professional level right here. With that being said, so first of all, I mean, it's great to hear about all the history. I'm sure that, a lot of teams are, kind of curious to really like understand where everything started. More than that, as we know, if you fast forward all the way to the modern day, DRS is competitive every single year. And I've had some guests on in the past. Specifically, I'll speak back to the last episode we did where we had Nathaniel Lawrence, who was one of the alternate captains on the JV team that won the championship this year. And I said, you could always bet on DRS. If they're not going to win the championship, they're going to be competitive. They're going to give everyone a hard time. They're never going to quit. They never play down to any opponent. They're always well coached. We'll get to that a little bit later. The bottom line is there is almost never a season that DRS is subpar. And if there has been, then I want to know about that, because that is an absolute first. And I'm sure it would sound like a first to anyone who has ever heard something along those lines. But I'll speak back to something that happened in the NHL a couple of seasons ago. I don't know how much you follow, how much anyone of our viewers follow, but a coach by the name of John Tortorella with the Blue Jackets in 2019 barely snuck his team into the playoffs. And they were going up against the Tampa Bay Lightning, who, and the reason this is relevant is because last night the Lightning just won their 11th straight postseason series. They are on to the Stanley Cup final for the third straight year. And a couple of years ago, they won the President's Trophy. They finished with the best record in the NHL. And the thing that they were most known for, their offense. They thought they could outscore anyone, and they did during the regular season. They shattered records. In the first round of the playoffs, they got swept because they could not defend. And Columbus, while they didn't have firepower offense, had a very strong defense and very strong goaltending. And the Lightning got swept. First team ever to win the President's Trophy and not win a single game in the playoffs. And they followed that up with back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. They're going for a third this year after they just clinched their berth last night against the Rangers. John Tortorella's quote that has been looked back to ever since then, because Tampa has not lost a series, is "We've created a monster by beating them." Do you kind of feel it's the same way by starting that history for DRS and believing that, maybe now you've created a monster that just will not be put down or slowed down for DRS?
I wish I could say yes. I don't believe it was me or our team. I believe it was our coach. I think it was Larry. I think Larry has created a monster in many ways. Obviously, he very often when I speak to him, he very often comes over to me and thanks me. and he always speaks about me and how we put him on the map. But it's hard to tell. I think that teams are built on great coaching. Yeah, every team, you can look at, one thing I do know is the New York Islanders. So I think they actually fired their coach, but they lost John Tavares a few years ago. Still remember this, me and my brothers were still in our group chats. Islanders are still the talk of our group chat. And, they got a new coach come in, and with less talent, John Tavares left their team, and he built a monstrosity. Again, they didn't win the Stanley Cup, but you see what a coach can really do and what great coaching does. I really do believe that the program is built, and it sounds funny to hear this, but it starts with Larry, or maybe even Rabbi Kamenetsky from DRS. I really believe that he's a major part of what goes on there. And yeah, I also believe that once you start winning championships, it becomes a thing. You want to go to that high school. I think there are kids that are playing in all these leagues in elementary school, and they're saying, well, I want to be part of a great team. I don't want to go to certain schools because maybe they're just not winning teams. And some kids may say to themselves, I want to go to a winning. But at the end of the day, I'd love to think that, but the truth is we won a championship. I don't think they won their next championship DRS for another 7 or 8 years afterward. They were always a good team, solid team, making the playoffs, but they were not in championships even, I don't believe, for a number of years afterward. But I think that Larry really created an unbelievable program. I think that over the years, he'll tell you this, he's become a better coach over the years, and he's created that program. So I would love to believe that we as a team had done that, but I happen to think that I don't know. I don't know the real answer, but I don't believe that it was because of us. Maybe it was because of you never know though. You never know.
So to follow up on that, when you talk about the coaching, I guess we'll transition a little bit. Do you believe, or rather not do you believe, but if you had to pinpoint the biggest key and the biggest difference, what would you say you noticed most, or that you learned most about Larry, having him as a coach and then having him as a colleague when you coached with him for a short amount of time following your years as a player?
He's as straight as they come. One thing I can say about Larry is that there is no favoritism. You play hard, you work hard, he loves you. He'll take care of you. He'll be there for you. And if you don't, you're not going to play. And he's going to play everybody evenly. If you deserve to play, you're going to play. If you don't deserve to play, and not because of your talent, but because of your hard work, you may not play. I see him as being a teacher. I look at him as being, again, in my time, he was a teacher of people. He helped me mature in many ways. We had an incident when I was in high school. We still always speak about this, so I'm not embarrassed to say this. But Larry, in fact, suspended me at one point during the season as the captain of the team. And I don't think that we would have gotten where we got if it weren't for that situation. I think he taught the team a lesson that nobody's above the team. And I don't know if you even noticed this, and I'm not doing this on purpose, but I keep on bringing up, you keep on asking me questions about the team, but I keep on speaking about the team. That is the one thing that in DRS, it's always been about the team. When I coached, there was not one player that was above the team. There were boys that, they were lazy at practice. They weren't going to play, even if they were more talented than the next. And that's always something that really stuck with me. And I think that it teaches people hard work. I think it teaches you how to really push yourselves. Yeshiva League hockey, and maybe I'll get into this in a little bit, is so much about, people always argue, is Yeshiva League hockey really a sport or not? Right? I'm sure you've had these discussions. Basketball is a real sport, but floor hockey, come on. Everybody always argues it's not a real sport. I always argue that it's not true. Yeshiva League hockey is the biggest sport because it's all about, and everybody will tell you this, it's all about heart and soul. Yeshiva League hockey is all about heart and soul, and that's really what he gives over. You put in your heart and soul, we'll do this. And I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but our team, we had 14 seniors. I got into this before. Nobody expected us to do it. We believe that we can do it. And every game, Larry to this day says, every time I stop by DRS practice, just about every year I try to stop by. Not because I can play with these guys. I can't keep up with these guys anymore. I'm so much more out of shape. But I just love being there. I love seeing the team. I know what Yeshiva League hockey does for people. I know what being captain did for me. I know what being part of a team did for me and what it did for everybody else. And the lessons I learned on the, I think that I can say that I thought some things when I was playing hockey, how great it was, but I realized after the fact how much greater than what I thought originally, what Yeshiva League hockey did to me. And I think Larry was a big part of that. And it's not just Larry, it's the team, it's Rabbi Kamenetsky, it's the Rebbeim, how they come to the games and they support you and they're there for you. And that was a major part of and I think that's what a major part of what DRS hockey is. It's not just a team. It's the whole school is the team.
Alrighty, so I want to transition a little bit, and also real quick, I just want to remind our viewers we're sponsored once again by the Weiselberg Law Firm. Choose wisely. So transitioning a little bit, now let's move on a little bit to your, specifically more toward your coaching days, and maybe some insight you can give there. So my understanding is that you coached one of DRS's current coaches who works with Larry Rav Jenna, Rabbi Stevejanikowski, I believe. And my question is to you, what did you learn from him as a player? Because I know what he's like now as a coach, but I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers are curious as well to know, what do you believe brought out the best in him as a player? Because I know, having coached against him and having played against him, when I was there not too long ago, when I was, playing against him not too long ago, that, he's always about, along with their other current coach at the moment, Andrew Giller, the DRS as a whole kind of has this system where Larry obviously, runs the program. He's, he's the captain of that ship. And he'll do things behind the scenes. He'll break down film, he'll run his drills. And then you've got, his, the coaches at his sides who are constantly about in-game adjustments. And I know that I personally know Rav Janikowski is one of those guys that really helps keep that that narrative going along with the teams. I saw it this past year, having coached against them when my teams were facing them, and having been able to scout them at the the championship game for the championships broadcast, when asking what do you notice is going on their bench when I was stationed there. So that's what I seem to notice. Was it similar as a player when you coached him, or do you believe that nothing has, do you believe that there was a huge change?
It's a great question. We're looking back now. This was right after my Shana Aleph. I came back to America. I was learning yeshiva, and I coached that team. That was the 1 year I coached next to Larry. And one thing I would say, it was a very special team. There were 3 captains of the team, and all 3 of those captains, they were best friends. And you saw how they cared so much about each other. And I don't want to get into specific examples for certain private reasons, but there were certain things that I saw with them. They cared. Now, Jenna is Rabbi Janikowski, I should say. He's an unbelievable person, and probably an even better friend. What I saw that year, that was a person who cared about his teammates, who was always looking to have fun, and the game never got too big for him. The moment never got too big for him. We were playing. We did not win a championship that year. We got knocked out in the semifinals in overtime to a boy that scored in overtime actually switched into DRS later. And the game was never too big. There was never a moment that was too big. He was always calm, cool, collected. Rabbi Janikowski always had that smile on his face. And I say that because when I think of Rabbi Janikowski, that's what I think of. I think of that guy who, when he was on the court, he was having fun. He was always having a good time. And I'm assuming that it probably translated into what he is now, being able to be that coach who the moment never gets too big for him, and he can really think at the moment, when things have to change up, because no moment is too big for him. And, again, he was young. He was only a sophomore, I think, at the time. And he's definitely changed a lot over the years. I've watched him change a lot, and I see him how he is such an unbelievable leader, not just on the court, but even in the classroom, in the shiurim. And I would definitely say that is definitely something he was clearly going to be. If he would become a coach, I could tell you for sure he would have been a great coach.
So to follow up on that, let's transition a little bit more, down the road. What would you say looking back at everything now that you're about, as you say, 20 years out of it, if you were to compare the programs that, obviously I'm sure there's some similarities with Larry having been there for you as a player for certain years, and now that he's there, for everyone that's gone through the system these days, would you say that you've seen, and having said also that you say you try to step in on at least one practice every single year, would you say that there's anything you wish you could have experienced, having seen what practice is like now, or having seen what the team is like now, how the coaching staff handles it now, back in your days, or does it still feel like it's the same?
So I'll tell you one thing I wish I had, and Larry tells me this every single time, and everybody tells me this all the time. I wish I was in that gym. I never played in that gym. Again, another little history lesson. DRS did not move into the building until after I graduated. The year after I graduated, they moved in the middle of the year. My freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, our home court was in Halb Elementary School in Long Beach. Anybody who knows anything about Halb Elementary School in Long Beach, that is a small gym.
Yeah.
My hockey game was always, I was stick handling, finesse. That was my game. That was my play, trying to make a move around a guy. It was not the dump and chase game. I was never really into that. And on some level, I watch it. I wish I could have played in that gym. A lot bigger. And it's not even such a big gym, but it is definitely significantly bigger. Teams used to practice. Flatbush, I remember, had a big gym. Flatbush used to practice. Before we played them in the playoffs, they had to practice. They cut their gym size in half. And that's how they practiced. That's how they practiced it. It was tiny. And I was a stick handler. I was trying to score goals. And but on some level, I think that it's basically the same. It's that same. It's just, it's hockey. It's sports. It's Yeshiva League sports. We're going to put our all out there. We're going to work hard. We're going to kill ourselves. But at the end of the day, things just haven't changed. Being a mensch is still number one. Being a mensch on the court. Now, I'm not saying every guy is, and that sometimes the moment takes over. For me personally, the moments very often, I had a hard time staying in the moment. But definitely, I think that there are a lot of similarities. But personally, if you ask me, a small little thing that I wish I played in, I definitely wish I played in that gym. So things were very different in that sense. We didn't have as much scrimmaging back then. Now they have I see in their practice, they're a lot more scrimmaging, and it seems just like a lot of fun.
Is there a moment that you look back to now that, aside from the fact that you wish you could have played in this gym, but is there a moment you look back to and you wish you would have handled it differently, having learned anything new? And if there's nothing new that you've learned looking at this, seeing, how things are run there these days, obviously, then there's no need to answer the question. But if there is something, what would that be?
So maybe just to say the question one more time, I'm just trying to.
Is there anything you've learned since your days as a player that you wish you would have experienced earlier? And if so, what would that be? And where would it have helped you the most? Is there a particular game or situation?
It sounds funny. In many ways, I made a lot of mistakes. As a captain, as a leader, as a player, as a teammate, I definitely made lots of mistakes. I'm thinking mostly towards my senior year, because that was definitely the most memorable year. And it's your year, it's your senior year, it's the year that you're playing against your closest friends. They're the leaders of their team. And I made mistakes. I told you I had gotten suspended for something very dumb, something to do with just arguing with a coach on the bench in the middle of the game. But you know what? I paid. There was a consequence. I did my time, but I do believe, though, I wouldn't take that back. We lost in both seasons that we played. We lost a bad game. in my sophomore year, we were 9-0, and the last game of the season was against Kushner, who was 0-9, and we were clearly better than them, and we lost them 4-1. So we probably went in not prepared well enough, not by the coaches, but the players didn't come in with that attitude of ready to play. But I don't think we would have won the championship if we had not had that loss. And I really do say, though, that I've learned a lot from hockey, and I'm such a big fan of not just hockey, but sports. I see what it did for me. I don't think that all of my Rebbeim even understood what it could have done for me. I learned my life, I think, is different because of Yeshiva League hockey, of being 14 boys who went out there not expecting to win. And when I went out there every single game, I wanted to win because I wanted to be the man. I'm not going to lie. It was because I wanted it for me. I was a team player, but I really wanted to be that guy who won the championship. I wanted to be able to tell my friends. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best on my team. I wanted to be the best in the league. And when I won, a lot of it was when we won that championship, I wanted it so badly because to show everybody that you all thought we couldn't do it. And I knew we could. And it was like a little bit like in your face. Like, I showed you, I told you, and this is what it was. Looking back at it now, hockey was so much more than that. It was showing me that we can do anything. If you put your heart and soul into something, put your mind to something, you can do anything. And I really believe that in my life, that's helped me get to so many places. I can't even tell you that times when you think something may be just too difficult for you, or you may think something is, and 18-year-olds don't realize this, but I'm now 38 years old. And I can tell you that attitude, winning that championship, and everything that went along with it, taught me that lesson. And I learned. I had games where I'd score a lot of goals, and I had games where I was totally shut down. I had games where I had my Rebbeim coming over to me in the middle of the game, telling me to calm down, pulling me aside. This is not who you are. This is not what you want to do right now. You got to get yourself in it. When the coaches sometimes couldn't get me calm, the Rebbeim would come over and pull me aside and try to calm me down. And, do I wish I would have acted differently? I don't know. I think that I learned so much from it, and I wouldn't take anything back.
So, we'll transition one more time, and this will be toward the closing. But just really two more questions I want to ask. You kind of answered a little. You kind of answered one of them, I think, slightly here. But if there's something I missed, is there anything you regret about your career? Or rather, let's narrow it down. What would be if there was anything, and if there were multiple, like what would be the single most important thing you wish, you could have had back?
Wow, that's a great question. Can you give me like a couple seconds to think of that? Just give me a couple seconds to try to answer that question. There's one thing I can take back. Wow, I was. Honestly, I can't think of something particular right now off the top of my head that I would take back, because again, like I said to you, I messed up a lot, but I really do believe that had I not messed up, I don't know if I would have become the person I am, and I don't know if our team would have gotten to the place we were. But one thing in particular, I don't think, this sounds funny, saying all your like regrets later in life. We had one captain who was a year younger than us, a guy by the name of Craig Berry, who was a phenomenal player and a phenomenal alternate captain. And he was, we always felt that the team belonged to the seniors. And it was our team. You guys are along for the ride, but realize this is yours. And I don't think I got the juniors involved maybe as much as I should have. I don't think that maybe in the huddles, if there was a person that wanted to speak, it was always the seniors that'd speak, because we felt that we built this school. We were the first year. We won that championship. A lot of you guys weren't along for the ride. Some of the freshmen were, but we've been around for all this time. This is our time. It's our team. And, I think maybe if I would have brought in the juniors a little bit more as part of the team, I think that would have been the right thing to do.
And then on the flip side, what would be the accomplishment you're most proud of? And, obviously, I mean, it might sound a little obvious, with the championship. If not, and even if so, then go on to something, maybe a little more personal. Was it, like an incredible season you had, maybe statistically, a performance in a certain game you had? What would that be?
It's got to be the championship game, because it just meant so much to us. And I think an unbelievable moment was watching my two best friends. So I had the first goal of the game. The second goal was an assist from one of my closest friends to a junior who scored the goal. And the final goal of the game was with like 3 minutes left. We were tied 2-2. And my two closest friends in high school, it was wild. It was like a pass from one of them right in front, a beautiful pass right in front. He roofed it top right, still remembered in slow motion. And, I think that put the whole championship together for us. We were a family. The reason why it was so special was because I wasn't celebrating this with a bunch of players. I wasn't celebrating this with just a bunch of guys that we just on a team together. These were my closest friends. I do believe that one of the reasons we were able to persevere, we were definitely not the most talented team out there. And if you ask Larry today, he tells everybody, I'm speaking about him a lot just because he's just my reference these days to the team. He always says we were the worst team that he ever had. In terms of practice, he'd watch us in practice and be like, how are these guys going to win a game? And we ended up going on to win, I believe, 16 games that year. One loss to after. And he said, but I put you guys against any other team I've ever had because you guys had the heart and soul, but I think it was because we were a family. The championship has got to be that moment because, like I said to you, I touched upon it before, how much it meant, in terms of, back then, I think my stats meant a lot to me. I think that having the most goals in the league was something which I really wanted, to be an MVP of the league, to score, I think it was just short of 30 goals in my senior year. I believe that that was in 16 games or something like that. I think that was a huge deal for me. But looking back at it now, though, many years later, that wasn't what it was. It was the perseverance and it was the team. And being part of such an unbelievable team. I'll tell you something interesting. Last year, the year 2000, April 1st, 2021 is not an April Fool's joke. April 1st, 2021 was the 20-year anniversary of DRS's first ever varsity championship game. And I called up my friends. It was something that special. And I called up our goalie, who is he was everything to the team. He saved us so many times. I mean, we won every playoff game and championship game. We won by one goal. And in every game, there was a pass not the championship game, but the first two playoff games, for sure, a pass right in front. And our goalie sprawled out with a glove save. It was like weird how that happened in both games. Just fell apart defensively the last 20 seconds of the game. And calling players like Yosef Rappaport, Danny Stoller, Sally Goldwasser. These are my closest friends. And to this day, it's still something so special to me.
All right. Thank you so much for making it happen, everyone. Is there anyone real quick that you want to shout out before we wrap this up?
I'd just like to shout out all the Rebbeim, all the people in DRS who helped me get there. I'm Baruch Hashem, I have to help Talmidim in other ways. I think that being a coach is like being a Rebbe in many ways. And now I'm a Rebbe in Yeshiva, in Mevaseret, and that's so special. And shout out to you. Thank you very much for this. And to Moshe Heller, who thought of the idea and asked me to do this. And I'm looking forward to seeing great podcasts from you guys. And really, you're doing great stuff here.
All right, well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for making it happen, Rav Hirschel. And thank you all once again to our viewers and to our sponsor, Elliot Weiselberg. It's the Weiselberg Law Firm. Choose wisely.
Thank you very much.